Here's Stephen Colbert, who has yet to make a single funny joke at any point during his late night show. His Comedy Central show, where all he did was make fun of conservatives, was actually funny sometimes. But I'm not aware, maybe someone could point me to it. I'm not aware, for the years that he's been doing this thing on CBS, I'm not aware of him ever having one funny joke or segment or bit or anything. And he certainly he didn't end that streak with this. Let's listen.
We've had troops there for 20 years. They fought. They sacrificed. Their families sacrificed so that we wouldn't have a terrorist attack in America planned in a foreign country. Why should our soldiers be fighting radicals in a civil war in Afghanistan? We've got our own on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, the way that they're leaning into that comparison, this is what the left always does, of course, because they're never on the defense. They're just going to lean into it. Michael Moore had the same thing. He said, their Taliban, our Taliban, everybody's got a Taliban. They're at their best when they confiscate the halls of power. And then we've got a picture of the Taliban up there, and then a picture of the guy in the bison suit and the horn hat walking through the Capitol. You notice some differences, though. Like the people at the top there, the Taliban, they all have guns, for one thing. They're armed. And then the bottom picture, no guns. No one's armed. They're armed with flags and a bullhorn. And a hat with horns on it. This is a comparison that should embarrass them. Because for months, they've been saying, oh, it was an insurrection, a violent insurrection. Our way of life was threatened. And now with the Taliban, you see what a violent insurrection actually is. You see what it really means, what it really entails when a violent group of extremists take over the government. Okay, you've got the president of the country fleeing in a helicopter. The military laying down their arms, surrendering, sometimes joining the other side. Now you have armed men who have taken control of the government, killing people in the street, even if the media is not quite highlighting some of that stuff. That's what an insurrection looks like. What you're seeing in Afghanistan right now, that's what an insurrection looks like. Compare that to what happened on Capitol Hill on January 6th, where we had a bunch of unarmed people walking into the Capitol building, which in many cases the doors were opened for them by the Capitol Police. They walk in, take some selfies, put their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, someone steals a lectern, and then they leave. That comparison reveals just how vapid and ridiculous the insurrection claim really is. But rather than the left being embarrassed by that, they lean into it and they say, yeah, you see, exactly the same. And we've seen more of these kinds of comparisons. MSNBC just published an editorial which says, over the last few days, the airwaves have been filled with Republicans voicing their deep concern over the rights of the women of Afghanistan. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy put out a statement sounding alarm bells that women will suffer the most from the loss of human rights under the Taliban's rule. Representative Stephen Chabot, the self-described dean of Ohio GOP congressional delegation, appeared Sunday on NPR declaring that under Taliban rule, the lives of women and girls are going to be reduced, condemned to slavery. And yet the writer goes on, I have to wonder where these voices are when extremists, based on a narrow reading of their religion's beliefs, enacted a law that forces a woman who was raped to carry the fetus of the rapist to term. The same law makes it a crime for anyone to assist that woman in trying to abort the rapist's fetus. And then it goes on from there, drawing the expected comparison between pro-lifers and the Taliban. And Mark Lamont Hill, it's hard to, we got a little bit of a Joe Biden problem here where it's hard to tell what exactly he's trying to say. But he has his show on Black News tonight, and he was trying to explain, I think, maybe I'll play this and you tell me what he's trying to say. It sounds like he's trying to blame white conservatives for the fact that women in Afghanistan have to wear burqas. I don't know. Let's listen.
This is about the way in which the hijab is being used as a political tool, first to demonize Islam, to make Islam look more oppressive and repressive than any other religion or culture in the world. It's also being used as a tool to justify American imperialism. There has been a consistent narrative from the West, particularly these United States since 9/11, to suggest that the reason we're invading countries, the reason we're plundering, the reason we're bombing, the reason we're exploiting is to save the women. Look at what they have to wear on their heads. They have no agency. They have no freedom. And we're going to fix that right now. One, it's dishonest and disingenuous because there are women in Saudi Arabia who are being exploited. There are women in Saudi Arabia who are being denied human rights, and we say nothing. Why? Because we want oil and weapons. But somehow when it comes to Afghanistan, we suddenly get outraged. We suddenly have morals and ethics. America doesn't have feelings. It has interests. And right now it has an interest in making you believe that their imperial theft and plunder is part of an attempt of white men to save brown women from brown men. And it's all a complete lie. Do not buy into the theatrics of hijab and burqas and khimars and all of that stuff. No. This is about good old-fashioned colonialism.
Once again, I can pick out one coherent statement there, which is actually true. America doesn't have feelings, it has interests. That's exactly right. You're right, Mark. Because, countries don't have feelings. America's not alone in that. What country do you think has a feeling? Tell me a country on earth right now that has a feeling. What are they feeling right now? Yeah, countries have interests. Individual people that make up the country have feelings. But the country as a whole shouldn't operate by those feelings. It should operate by interests. Those interests are not always purely political or economic. Those are parts of those are interests as well. But every country is worried about its own interests. The problem with America actually is not that we're motivated by our interests, but that we're not motivated by our interests enough. That we are taking the interests of other people in other countries into consideration more than we should. More than any other country does. Because with most countries, there's no controversy. They're worried about their own interests and the interests and the well-being of their own people, and that is all they are worried about, and they don't pretend to worry about anything else. Only with us, only with America and broadly more Western countries broadly, is it suddenly controversial for a country to be self-interested in that sense. But all the rest of it, yes, the burqa is a tool of white conservatives. Somehow, I was waiting there. That's why I played the whole clip, because I'm waiting for him to try to draw. He has taken he's strewn a lot of dots across the table here pretty haphazardly, and I'm waiting for him to connect them to see what sort of picture comes together, and he doesn't really. But he seems to be trying to argue that somehow burqas are a tool of white conservative men to oppress brown women in Afghanistan. Either it's a tool of ours or it's a false narrative. Maybe he's claiming that that it's not true. They don't really have to wear burqas. Oh yeah, they're claiming that women in Afghanistan don't have agency. Yeah, we claim that because if they show their hair in public, they'll be stoned to death. Silly me, I thought that was an attack on the agency of a woman. So what you see overall here, a lot of these comparisons, trying to draw these kinds of connections between, conservatives and the Taliban. We are the American Taliban. And we've heard this for years, going back 20 years, we've heard this from the left. And this to me raises a couple of questions. The first one is, as I asked yesterday, and I'll ask again, because I think it's a good question. Why do you want, if you're on the left, and you believe that we have our own Taliban in this country, and it's powerful and numerous, why do you want refugees to come here in the first place? If you think that this country is overrun by its own Taliban, isn't that a horrible injustice? Isn't that horribly unfair to them? I mean, from the frying pan into the fire type of thing? They escape one Taliban to end up at the mercy of another, according to you? Let's pretend that you're correct for a second. Yeah, we're all in the Taliban. America's a systemically racist country, very, very oppressive. We've got law enforcement officers that are prowling in the streets, hunting black men, murdering them for no reason. It's such a big problem that we have to have riots about it across the country. Why do you want to bring refugees into this? This is not a refuge for them. This is not safe for them. For their own good, for their own safety, they should go into the tolerant and loving arms of another Muslim country in the Middle East. Right? I mean, is our country a safe haven for minorities and oppressed foreigners and non-white people who are being oppressed by other non-white people, by the way? Is it a safe haven for them or not? If it is a safe haven, then you're going to have to really drop the oppression, systemic racism, American Taliban narrative. You're going to have to pick one or the other. If it's not a safe haven and everything is as bad here as you say, then at the very least, we should all be able to agree that we cannot accept this whole flood of Afghan refugees. We may have different reasons for coming to that conclusion, but we should be arriving at the same conclusion nonetheless. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.